Final Fantasy is truly a juggernaut of a franchise, spanning across years of game releases that seem to touch every genre it can possibly get to. From your typical RPGs, to a more tactical RPG affair, to mobile games, tower defense, fighting games, and even the MMORPG. Their narratives can range from classic fantasies to heroic fairy tales, to sci-fi with magic, to stories that are eerily similar to real life. And to whatever this is, I'm still not sure what I'm looking at. It's a series that improves upon everything that came before it and pushes the genres that it goes into new heights, or leaves us questioning if it's really from the same series. Despite it all, the original Final Fantasy has stood the test of time as a certified classic of the genre. Its simple design lets players jump right in and offers enough replay value to make most modern RPGs blush. However, as time has gone on, there's just one undeniable fact about Final Fantasy I. It's easy. It's super, super easy. Despite all of that, I wanted to ask the very simple question today. Is it possible to make Final Fantasy I challenging? Can we break this game into two and make it give us a real challenge? So I propose the question, is it possible to beat Final Fantasy I with only one character? The rule is quite simple. We must play through the game from a new save file until the end credits with only one Warrior of Light. The remaining party must remain dead for all fights and should have 0 experience gained by the time we face Chaos. No free meat shields for this run. For the majority of the game, we'll be facing off against Chaos's forces with nothing but some skill, strategy, and a whole lot of luck. With the logistics out of the way, let's just jump right into the game. For this challenge, I'll be using the Pixel Remaster version of Final Fantasy I. It's the version sold today and has a ton of small improvements to the game that'll make our lives easier. Realistically, there isn't a numerous amount of changes between versions, besides some extra content like with the Dawn of Souls versions, so I don't believe we'd be missing out on much content or making the challenge any easier than we would be if we used this version over others. Starting off, we come to the most difficult question we have to ask ourselves: which job do we pick? In the original Final Fantasy I, the player is capable of using one of 6 unique jobs: a warrior, thief, monk, white mage, black mage, and red mage. Now, each job in Final Fantasy I has various roles within a party that comes with their own set of strengths and weaknesses that will affect different parts of our run and just any run in general. However, most jobs will ultimately end up being around the same point by the time we face Chaos, so who we pick won't change the end results all that much. But the early and mid portions of the game will be affected by who we pick now, so we are going to have to choose carefully. When I was originally planning this video, I was originally going to go with the white mage. The job seemed like the ultimate challenge, but after some research, it just seemed like most fights would honestly just take longer, rather than being more difficult, so I promptly went back to the drawing board. After some careful consideration, I decided to pick up the humble red mage as my preferred warrior of light, and got ready to tackle Chaos's forces. The jack of all trades but master of none is an interesting pick for this challenge. Unlike the rest of the jobs, the red mage is limited at most stages of the game. While he has access to a lot of stuff, he doesn't have the same explosive power points as many of the other jobs. While he's able to deal solid physical damage, the red mage will always get outclassed by his co-stars. While the defensive and curative spells sound great, the white mage will always outperform, and the lack of a party means that most of them just end up being rather pointless. Finally, the ability to cast black magic is great at all points, but the black mage will almost always edge out over the man in red. However, I believe many of these weaknesses will eventually become this run's greatest strengths. But I've held you here long enough, so let's not waste any more time and jump right into the action. I start the game off by making my red mage and then the remaining party members black mages. These can be any job you like. I just went with the black mage because they have the weakest defense and health pool out of the gate, and we have to kill them in the first battles, so I was hoping to speed that up even just by a little bit. I run around for a few seconds to engage in the first real battle of this run. The goal here is quite simple: kill all 3 black mages and end the fight with only our red mage. It should be simple enough. Let me just end... I failed. That's okay, no problem. Let's just give it another try, and I failed again. So it turns out this was possibly the dumbest roadblock I could have ever come across. I had to reset this part more times than I would like to admit. The goblins can take extremely long time to finish off your party, and I didn't want to run too far from the path, as running into more difficult enemies such as a pack of wolves or ogres were more likely to just wipe me out completely than actually do what I was setting out to do. Not only that, but the goblins were capable of fleeing at any point, so sometimes they would make the fight either take longer or just end it by mistake. Nonetheless, I power through and get every black mage except for one down to 1 HP, and all the goblin here has to do is do one final killing blow, and we can get on with the son of a bitch! With all the party members down after a ludicrous amount of time, I go back to town, heal up, and start farming for some gil. Our first goal is going to be taking down Garland over at Chaos Shrine. Normally, Garland is a total pushover, but after the whole goblin fiasco, I wasn't going to take any more risks. I gear up as much as I can and march my way on over to the Chaos Shrine. Once inside, I save and approach Garland, ready for a fight. I'm not too sure how the first boss of this run is going to go, so I give it a test run. Unfortunately, I get a tad too greedy and pay the price, and earn the honorary title of the first human to ever die to Garland. With a bit more knowledge, I heal up and get ready for round 2. Garland, Cloud, will knock you down. Oh, hey, he's already dead. With Garland's defeat, my party rises from the grave to rescue the princess alongside me and steal most of the credit for all of my hard work. Taking the fast track back to Cornelia, I acquire the loot, get promised a shiny new bridge, and watch the cutscene introducing us to the start of our grand adventure that awaits. Rested up, we set out for Slovakia. We handle hordes of goblins with relative ease, along with some wolves here and there, but I do get my ass handed to me by a couple of horses, and learn that critical hits ignore protect buffs. This is an important lesson, as it means that even if I ever feel safe, I'm probably never safe. Take 2, we make it to Slovakia and perform some legwork by farming for some gil. I buy some new spells, rest up one more time, and get ready to have a friendly conversation with Bike, the great pirate. Our attempt at peace goes south in record time, and we're forced to fight in a 9v1. Now, the pirates themselves are not terribly strong. In fact, most enemies we fought in the wild have proven that they can pack more of a punch than these guys. I highly suggest you go into this fight with both Protect and Tempered. Cast both about 2 to 3 times and lay into the pirates. Bike's goons now disposed of, the great pirate starts singing a very different tune, handing over his ship and giving us access to the open seas. Did some last minute stocking up and hit the waters for the first major city in our journey, Elfheim. On the way, like with Slovakia before, I do run into some trouble but manage to escape. Big Eye's special move, Gaze, gives me a small taste of what is to come, and oh boy, I am not ready for what is to come. Either way, we make it to Elfheim with a sliver of health and begin more grinding for money and experience. Not just a little bit of grinding, a lot of grinding. After some time has passed, I level myself up to level 15 and manage to gear up some more. For past experience, Marsh Cave, the next stop in our adventure, is always a tough part of basically any playthrough of Final Fantasy I. Having the fear built in me at this point, I wasn't going to take any risk and did as much preparation as I possibly could. Despite minor hiccups, the run so far had been going pretty smooth, so I was feeling somewhat confident. The track to Marsh Cave itself wasn't so bad. While the enemies did pack a bunch, our steadfast red mage kept dealing with whatever was thrown his way. That was until I met them. It's just 4 gas. I cast Fyra expecting a quick and easy sweep of the foe when their flurry of attacks come at me. 1 hit, 2 hits, a third, the third being the most fatal as it casts the most dreaded status effect yet, and possibly the worst of them all, Paralysis. Paralysis works like this in Final Fantasy I. It prevents the afflicted unit from being able to participate in a battle. Basically, they just stand still. Player characters have a 25% chance of recovering at the end of every single turn. With higher levels, the effect of paralysis gets less deadly, but early on, it's a death sentence. Escaping Big Eyes earlier was a sign. Nonetheless, I carry on. With a reset back to Elfheim, I decided to do a tad bit more grinding and stock up before Marsh Cave. Totally not running away from my problems and delaying the inevitable. With as much prep work done as possible, I finally decide it is time to head on over to the Marsh Cave. When I get there, it soon becomes clear that this will become my personal hell. First, there's two set of stairs on the one. The one located north leads to just a bunch of treasure chests with some gil in them. While it isn't necessary for us to grab these treasure chests, I would however recommend it, as early on we're going to be hurt for gil, and the ability to get more of it right now will help in the long run. That is until I hit possibly the deadliest enemy formation in the entire cave, Bloodbones and Crawlers. Unable to put up much of a fight, I get paralyzed twice and wiped to this nasty duo. Don't worry, this is going to happen a lot. In fact, I die in the same way 2 minutes later on the next attempt. After a few more attempts, I managed to clear the top section of the map and begin my descent downwards. Some hellish time later in this godforsaken place, I do manage to clear the bottom half of B2 and decide to restock before attempting the lower levels. I leave Marsh Cave and return to Elfheim. Making back to Elfheim safely, I rest and buy Blizzra and a stack of potions and ethers. I opt to buy Blizzra here despite it not being very good for Marsh Cave, as just an additional option to sweep larger groups of enemies in a pin. More stacks of AoE spells means that I can focus less of my time on having to heal every single battle and keep my important stock of healing items for when I want to get further progress within the Marsh Cave. Right now, this place is the best place to level up anywhere on the map, so we're gonna have to stay here for a while, and that means we're gonna have to clear it for a lot longer. Something else I noticed early on was I was actually leveling up much faster in this place than I was actually expecting to have. You see, in Final Fantasy I, whenever you win a battle, you're given a stack of experience. That stack is then divided up between all active party members. For example, if you gain 1,000 experience from a battle, that experience is then split up into 250 for all 4 party members. However, with the Red Mage being the only one alive, he gains all the experience, which in essence levels him up 4 times faster than he normally would. This just mostly boils down to us getting a lot stronger sooner than we would typically expect from this point in the game. With preparations done, I head back to Marsh Cave with my head held high, and within a few minutes of being there, I almost get stunlocked and killed by a couple of ghasts and ghouls. Honestly, I'm starting to think I killed someone's dog in a past life or something, because shortly after that, I die to a group of scorpions, which absolutely destroys me. Honestly, if it's one thing, it's another. Either way, I begin to clear B3 room by room when— oh, come on! Managing to make it this far, I decide to test my luck against the quote-unquote boss of this area, the group of Pisco Demons. This group of 4 enemies are fairly tough nuts to crack, if you aren't an idiot like me, and can quickly make short work of you like you were nothing at all. The Pisco Demons currently hold the key item we need to leave this place, the crown, so one way or another, we have to beat these guys. So I do what any person desperate enough in an RPG does. I grind. Good lord, do I grind. Frankly, there isn't much to talk about at this point in the game, as all my progress grinds to a roaring halt. Most of my footage up this point has just been me walking back and forth in this godforsaken cave. Numerous times I would die, and frankly I was starting to question my own sanity. The only reassuring part was that I knew others that had done this challenge before, and thus this was likely the worst thing to come. For those looking to take on this challenge, however, I would like to impart some important information that may not only help you, but also save you a massive amount of time. First, save scumming. You see, in the Pixel remasters, the player is given the ability to save at any time for free. This means you can save as frequently as you want and prevent yourself from losing out on precious experience. Honestly, I don't know how I would have cleared this challenge without this, as there was many times I would just die in the cave at random. If I got sent back to the start every time I died, I would be here a lot longer. The second tip, use Thundra. Turns out, Pisco Demons, weak to thunder. When I fought them for the first time, I tried using Blizzard. I was dumb. Don't be like me, kids. With a single cast of Thundra, I perform one of my longest, yeah boys ever and taste the sweet, sweet taste of victory. I have the goddamn crown. Holy shit! Marsh Cave has been one of the most grueling things I've done in a long time. I spent hours playing through this hellhole, dying over and over again. I died a total of 28 times, and this segment is by far the most footage I captured from this playthrough. My very being felt totally drained, and in a single moment, it all came together. I felt like a new man, a man with a stylish red hat, and by God did it feel good. I walked out of this blasted cave, proud with the knowledge that I would never have to step foot in here again. Fortunately for us, this is the first dungeon in the game, and we still have a lot more ahead of us. Fortunately for us, however, this is possibly the hardest part of the game until the very end, so let's get right back on track. With the crown from the Marsh Cave in hand, I make a quick pit stop back to Elfheim before we head northwest to the Western Keep. Make sure to grab Haste from the Black Magic Shop. Haste is one of the strongest spells we'll learn throughout this entire playthrough, and it'll be put to use countless times. My spell lineup looked like this at this point, and if I'm being honest, you don't need Dark or Invis. Feel free to change those ones. And no, I won't be explaining the story and why we're doing any of this. I really don't get it myself. Our next target is going to be Astos the Dark Elf. Now, I won't lie to you, Astos himself can be actually pretty difficult, mostly due to his wide array of spells that include death. As you can imagine, there's no real strategy if he casts death on you. Insta-kills will end the fight regardless, so all you can really do is hope that he misses. My first attempt had me casting Protect to help lessen the damage that I took from Astos, but since he mostly spams spells, it wasn't working. Physically, Astos is pretty weak and with a small health pool and weak melee attacks, so just using Silence may be the safest route. But I didn't think of that because I'm stupid. You can grab Silence as a level 2 white magic spell in Provakia if you want an easier fight here. Most of my attempts against Astos were met with a lot of failures. I tried buffing up the red mage often, but it just didn't work due to the powerful suite of spells. The chances of death were also always around the corner, so this fight did take me a few times. After multiple failed attempts, I decided to just throw strategy right out the window and went full Oonga Boonga. I cast Haste on myself and just start attacking. Astos can put out a lot of damage, but he will occasionally not attack to buff himself or use a debuff. Just keep yourself above 90 health with high potions and swing in between healing, and you should make quick work of this Dark Elf. With Astos dead, we obtain the Crystal Eye. I'm still not sure why he has this even, but we're now able to make a lot more progress. Leaving the Western Keep, we make our way back to the ship docked at Elfheim and ride north. Dock at Cornelia, and we'll be taking the rest of the trip on foot. Take the bridge that we took earlier to Provakia, but this time head north. Shortly, we'll come across a cave leading to the witch Matoya. Make sure to listen to Matoya's banger of a theme song and speak to her to return a crystal eye. Because every good deed won't go unrewarded, she hands us the Jolt Tonic. Apparently, it's the most amazing potion in her entire collection, but like, what a weird potion to be the most amazing. It's like a Monster Energy drink or something. Speak to her again to get insulted for good luck. Ouch, lady. And head back to Elfheim. This time when we go to Elfheim, make sure that you enter the castle and head left. Find the prince and the healer, hand over the Jolt Tonic, and use that to wake up Sleeping Beauty. For being overall cool dudes, he'll hand us the Mystic Key, which will allow us to open up any door. Now, at this point, you may have noticed that there's several locked doors across the land that we have not been able to open up. With the Mystic Key, though, those doors can now be opened. Grab the treasure you want on this continent, located in Elfheim, the Western Keep, and Marsh Cave, and take the boat back to Cornelia. Back in Cornelia, there's a locked door in the castle that will be housing the next important item, the Nitro Powder. Before moving on, I stock up with some healing items, sell the gear that I've gained so far from all this treasure, and I'm basically rich at this point, so I invest a lot more into healing items to help ease our trip. With that being said and done, we take our boat northwest to dock up there. Head south and you'll quickly find Mount Druger, home of the dwarves. Make sure to hit up the treasure room and talk to Nirik just outside the treasure room. He'll lay down the Nitro Powder and blow a goddamn hole in the continent. Holy shit, we were carrying that stuff? Throw that shit at Chaos. Story over. Easy done. With the canal open up, we can take our ships west and head to the lovely town of Meltmod? I check all the shops and get the most major upgraded spells yet, Figara. Or is it Faraga? I'm not actually sure how this is pronounced. We also pick up a longsword and curaga before we head on over to the Cavern of Earth. Just head for the Dorito-shaped landmass, you can't miss it. As is typical of this run, I die pretty quickly as soon as I enter this place, but I am still feeling pretty good. Most enemies here die fairly quickly despite hitting pretty hard. This is likely due to the fact that I was just massively overleveled at this point, which is basically just a running theme for the rest of this run. I grab all the treasure chests on the first floor before leaving to rest in a tent. I would highly suggest starting to use tents and cottages more often as they're fairly cheap and you can save a lot of time from backtracking. Cavern of Earth is a pretty straightforward dungeon. Every floor is not so bad except for the bottom floor, B3. This place can be slightly more dangerous due to the appearance of both rights and gas and the cockatrice. Both can cheese you out of a life pretty easy, but with some luck it won't be any problem. Eventually you'll come face to face with the vampire in the Cavern of Earth. Not even gonna lie, I killed him in 2 casts of Faraga. Isn't any tougher than most of the basic enemies we fought at this point, so don't worry. The Star Ruby from the treasure chest behind him and leave the cavern for now. Head west past the Dorito to Giant's Cave. Talk to the giant inside and let him munch down the Star Ruby. Don't cry over lost profits too much because it's for the greater good, guys. Exit the Giant's Cave and make your way on over to the Sage's Cave now. You know, there's a lot of goddamn caves in this stupid game, huh? Inside the Sage's Cave, you'll meet Sada, the Sage, who informs us that the vampire was just a mere servant to the true evil lurking deeper in the cavern. He hands us the Earth Rod, which will allow us to head deeper into the cavern than we could before. I managed to make the long trek back to the stone plate blocking our path from before and strike with the Earth Rod. Bada boom, bada bing, and we are in. Unfortunately, there's still a lot more cavern left to explore, so get ready to press on. Not much of note on the trip down, just make sure that you head to B5, our final stop, and get ready to face the Fiend of Earth, Lich. Going into this fight, I'm honestly feeling pretty good. Unlike past fights, the Cavern of Earth has been mostly just a total breeze, and my rapid growth has really brought the entire challenge down. Still, the Fiend of Earth can be quite a troublesome fight, so don't sleep on him quite yet. My game plan was Old Faithful: Cast Protect, Haste, Tempered, while healing when necessary, before I just unleash some attacks. Turns out I was right not to worry, as 1 Haste plus Tempered later and I 2-shot Lich, what the hell? That was it, are you joking me? How? right. We managed to defeat Lich with little challenge and restored the light back to the Earth Crystal. That makes 1 of 4 fiends down, and we're ready to move on to the next one. We take the exit back to the surface and go back to Meltmod for rest. Everybody here is either lost to their sanity completely or just plain dumb, as they don't seem to realize that we've already restored the light to the crystal, but whatever. I take the boat from Meltmod and start to sail west, which loops us around for our next stop, Crescent Lake. With infinite money, I buy out all the healing items just in case, and we grab a mithril sword and finally a buckler. This took way too long, and head on over to the Circle of Old Men. Why this place has a Circle of Old Men, I could not tell you. Talk to this one and receive the canoe. From here, we're going to be making a slight detour. Normally, you could follow the river beside Crescent Lake and go directly to Mount Gull, but after getting taught the same lesson like an old man, I decide it's time to hit up the best form of transportation we can get. I'd like to avoid crossing these channels as much as possible, so instead of Mount Gull, we make our way slightly north for the Cavern of Ice. Make sure to follow this path, and you'll be at the Cavern of Ice with a hop, skip, and a jump. Still be wary of the enemies in the water, because they still hit like trucks, and you're gonna die probably a few times. Like almost every single dungeon in this game, the Cavern of Ice is pretty straightforward. This place can be pretty large though, so get ready for quite a few battles as you press forward. Follow the path until you eventually come to a big room with a bunch of cracked tiles and 2 treasure chests and this random stone in the middle. Beware of the cracked tiles and grab the treasure chests first. Once you open both of them, you can step on one of the broken tiles to proceed. Don't misstep like me and get forced to redo the whole dungeon again. This was really annoying. The new room you land in is pretty interesting. On this floor, there are a ton of spiked tiles that will damage you with each step. Do be aware, however, that you can't get into battles on them, so use that as you will. For the rest of this dungeon, this room is pretty straightforward. The next room is pretty normal, except for one tiny detail. Don't take the stairs here. The staircase will take you directly outside the Cavern of Ice, so if you don't want to have to redo the entire dungeon again, make sure you don't take them. If you follow the path correctly, you'll land directly in front of the Levy Stone, but before you can actually grab this bad boy, you'll be forced to fight the Evil Eye. This thing can cast instant death moves, but besides that, it's probably the weakest enemy in this entire place, surprisingly enough. We take it down in one hit after a cast of Haste, and we move on. Redo the path you took to get to the stone, except this time make sure you take the stairs out. With the Cavern of Ice down, we backtrack to our ship, and we make our way back to Crescent Lake. This time, follow the river south, and you'll eventually come down to a spot of land you can exit off of. Once you step foot in the desert, you'll acquire the airship. Now with the airship, we're presented with two main options. First, we could go to Mount Gull and take down the Fiend of Fire. The second option, we'd perform the class change and get the last group of spells and gear that we'll be able to get for the time being. Now, when I was originally planning out this video, I was actually pretty torn on whether I should do the class change or not. After all, I didn't want to make this challenge any easier on myself. However, after I did a lot of research and some careful consideration, there was honestly not much of a gain from doing the class change itself. You see, in Final Fantasy I, class changing mostly does two things for a character. It first unlocks the gear for the Warrior of Light to use, and second, it unlocks magic options. Stats don't really change, and for the most part, the differences of a red mage and a red wizard were basically non-existent. Once we reach Chaos, we'll largely be having access to all the exact same tools that we would have as one or the other, so the benefits were pretty minimal. The major benefits of a class change was getting access to Blizga and Thundaga, allowing me to clear large mobs more efficiently and save my usages of ethers. Even still, it didn't affect this run too much, so I ultimately decided to go ahead with it. To perform the class change, we'll need to make our trip over to the Citadel of Trials to take on the challenge to gain the Rat's Tail. I park the airship on this part of the continent and make the hike over to the castle. Do what the old man tells you and get ready for a guessing game puzzle. The floor 2 of this dungeon wants you to take the correct teleporter to basically progress, so it's all guesswork. Let me just save you a bunch of time and take the teleporters here, 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 and here. Run the loop around the 3rd floor, grab the treasure along the way, and get the Rat's Tail. Just sit on the throne to leave. Honestly, the enemies in this place shouldn't give you any issues. Stuff like the zombie dragons can hit pretty hard, but they give a buttload of EXP, so maybe you'll want to farm them. We're gonna have to do this eventually, but there's gonna be other spots to do it, so don't worry too much for now. Once you exit, go to the airship and check out the Island of Dragon Caves. I highly suggest you grab all the treasures here, especially the elixir. Elixirs are uber rare and will be massively important later on. Once you find the right place, follow the path to everybody's favorite boy, Bahamut, and show him the Rat's Tail. With his amazing powers, or whatever he does, he turns everybody into total chads, and we have reached peak form. We are no longer beta males, we are alphas. From here, I decide to fly to all the towns and finish out my spell lineup with the following selection. Now, Null Shock, Blaze, and Frost will later be made worthless, so you can replace these. Temper will also likewise get replaced, so you can change it later on. Besides Haste, Protectra, Cures, and the elemental spells, most spells in Final Fantasy I aren't really all that important. Other than some niche usages, I just focus on the ones that help me clear mobs and fight chaos. The rest are just filler options. Unfortunately, Exit comes in way too late to actually matter all that much, and most of the debuff spells are either too slow or just don't work against bosses. I'll also mention that Protectra is just a better protect for whatever reason. It adds plus 12 to defenses on cast rather than protects plus 8. Shit is weird, man. Having maxed out on everything, we can finally make our way back to Mount Gull. I'm gonna start speeding through a lot of the parts at this point, as there's just not much to talk about. At this point, I was so freaking strong that almost nothing stood in my way, and I had such a wealth of cash, I didn't even really have to rest at inns anymore. This run was basically made easy after this point, so I'm gonna start doing a lightning round and punch through the rest of the game. Get your butt over to Mount Gull and enter the dungeon. Clear floor 1 with no trouble and just head straight on floor 2. There's nothing of value here. Go right on B3, down right on B4, down left on B3, once again on B4. You can clear all the chests if you want, but none of them really matter except for the far left chamber that houses the Ice Brand, which is a nice upgrade for us. Once finished, head down and enter B5. There's a flame mail to the left, but since we can't use it, go left and you'll finally come face to face with Merilith, the Fiend of Fire. There isn't much to Merilith to worry about. I cast Null Blaze, 3 Tempers, and she dies in 2 hits from there. With the crystal restored, that makes 2 out of the 4 fiends down, and we're moving on to the Shrunken Shrine next. Start saving up for 50,000 gil, you'll need that for the battle ferry. Journey on over to the waterfall cavern north of Onrock and enter. Just follow this path and you'll get to the goal in no time. Obtain the warp cube from the robot. In one of the chests you'll find the ribbon. Equip that bad boy and you can now resist all elements of damage and most instant death moves and status effects. Now fly on over to the district caravan, it's located right here, and purchase the battle ferry. With the ferry we can now travel back to Gaia and release it to get the Oxy Ale in return. While the preparations handled, get back on track and head on over to Onric to enter the Shrunken Shrine. Go to the sub on the far right, question what the hell you just saw, and dive down into this huge-ass dungeon. The Shrunken Shrine is a fairly large dungeon, but don't worry too much since about 80% of this place is just dead space. There's a few things we must grab here, so make sure to follow along. You'll start on the 3rd floor and you'll be able to go up or down. The Kraken is on the 1st floor, but we're gonna have to go up first. The 4th floor is pretty straightforward. All you have to do is go down and you'll head up. There are several notable chests here, including the Mage Staffs, which can cast Fira when used in battle, the Light Axe, which can cast Dyra when used as an item, and the Diamond Armor, one of the strongest armors in the game. Oh yeah, I guess I should talk about this part of Final Fantasy 1, huh? You see, in the original Final Fantasy, several items are capable of casting spells. These spells are infinite use and allow different jobs to break their standard class restrictions. You don't have to equip these items, so it gives the player a ton of options. One of the items in this dungeon is a mandatory grab, and it will be vital for fighting not just Chaos, but every boss to come. Back to the action, once we've cleared the 4th floor, we'll be making our way up to the 5th. The 5th floor is pretty much a total safe zone, so just take it easy and search every room. This floor wraps around at the top like the world map, so take the path to get to the most important chamber, the home of the Rosetta Stone. This is a key item required to make progress, so make sure that you grab it. Once done, use this exit spell to safely fast track your way out of the shrine and head left this time to go to the 2nd floor. If you don't have that spell, tough luck. Just follow the path until you land here. There's a bunch of treasure on this floor, but the most of it is just skill. The most important chamber is the far left, which houses the Giant Glove, a super key item we'll use for the rest of this run. On the 1st floor, just realize that this is a massive empty space. Just hang left and follow the path, and you'll eventually meet the Fiend of Water, Kevin, Satan, Iron Maiden, oh screw it! At this point, I was currently level 53, and I was a lot more geared up than other fights before us. So like past fiends, I didn't think too much about this. That was until he hit me for 321 damage, and I got a little bit spooked. I focused on casting Protector a few times and reduced the incoming physical damage. Thanks to the ribbon, ink does nothing, so I didn't have to worry about that. I used Slow Rough just for good measure, and with the defenses up, I cast the Giant's Glove several times, and Haste before beginning the WWE SmackDown event! I one-shot him. I'm a little shocked, but nonetheless, I get the shine back to the water crystal and make for the final stretch of the game. First, we need to head back to Melma and give the Rosetta Stone to Dr. Un. With the Rosetta Stone, the good doctor is finally able to understand the ancient language of the Lufarians and helps us out by teaching it to us. Park your airship over here and start hiking down to the city of Lufaria and collect the chime. You came here earlier, you wouldn't have been able to understand them, but now you're good to go. Exit Lufaria, there's nothing else here for us, and get on over to the big desert that you would likely have passed getting your way over here. Head to the tower in the middle of the desert and you'll now be able to enter the Mirage Tower. Mirage Tower is not a complicated dungeon by any means. It can be tedious though. You start in the south and basically you head counterclockwise to reach your destination. The tower is pretty hard to get lost in since it's mostly just a straight path. This place is mostly just a stepping stone for the real dungeon coming up, the Flying Fortress. Grab the treasure on both floors, and in no time you'll be able to use the warp cube to land smack dab in the middle of floor 1 of the Flying Fortress. Since this is the second last dungeon, I'm going to just do us a favor and jump through this dungeon pretty quick. The first floor is just a cross. Treasure is in every path except for north, where the stairs are. Get the treasure and head up. The second floor is just a larger version of the last one. Straight down is the stairs, everything else is treasure. A majority of the treasure here isn't that valuable, but there are some notable ones, like the Adamantite, which will allow us to create the strongest weapon in the game, for warriors only, so it's worthless to a red hat-clad hero. Also of interest are the black and white robes, both of which are the strongest armor sets for the other wizards. Black robe can cast Blizzara, and the white robe can cast Invisira, which is just a worse of Invis in this run. They're both in the bottom left and right chamber. The third floor is just a bigger version of the first. It's mostly treasure on this floor, with some notable items, like the Sasuke's Blade, which is the strongest weapon for the ninja. We also have the Protect Ring and the Protect Cloak, both of which complete our final armor set, giving us the best mix of defenses, resistances, and evasion we're gonna get for this run. The stairs here are just left of where you started. The fourth floor is a giant square? This dungeon is worse than the Shrunken Shrine, I swear to God, what the hell? Head to the top left and you'll reach the fifth and final floor. Once you reach the fifth floor, the only thing waiting for you is a long bridge and Tmat at the end. But do be wary of the most infamous enemy in this game, Warmech/Death Machine, a notoriously difficult random encounter that is one of the strongest enemies in the entire game. The chances of finding it are extremely rare. I think it's like 1 in 64 chance, but running into it will definitely give you a run for your money, which is exactly why I tried running into it. I figured I wanted to put this run to the ultimate test, so I tried hunting down this infamous foe to no such luck. Despite all this, I was actually pretty okay with wasting the hour or so hunting the thing down. You see, I was gaining a ton of experience and I eventually landed on level 84. I highly suggest you start grinding. Chaos is going to be a real test of power for us, and you'll want to be level 99 if you want to have any chance of beating the bad boy. The fifth floor, while home to one nasty enemy, is full of so many pushover encounters that we can make quick work of, while dropping a ton of EXP. This is the perfect, safe area to grind for without little fear of losing progress. Either start grinding here or Chaos Shrine as soon as you can. But enough about grinding for now, we have Tmat to deal with. The last of the elemental fiends, Tmat likes to use attacks that target the entire party. Fortunately for us, all these attacks are elemental based, so they are severely weakened thanks to the ribbon. You know the drill by now. Buff up, heal when necessary, and lay into him. With no trouble at all, I smack him down in one hit, and that makes the fourth and final fiend. With the last crystal shining bright, we are now in the home stretch. Do any last minute running around that you have to do, and make your way back to Chaos Shrine, where you rescued Princess Sarah and defeated Garland in the beginning of the game. Head inside and interact with the orb in the center of the room. Using the power of the 4 elemental crystals, we are now capable of traveling back 2,000 years in time. Don't ask how any of this makes sense, because again, it doesn't. The Chaos Shrine is the longest dungeon yet and is a true test of your endurance. I highly suggest you get ready for a long trek. Nothing here is too dangerous, but it can get pretty rough if you are unprepared. Upon using the crystal, we'll land in the first floor in the past. Head down right and get to the second floor, to the right on the second floor, and you'll be on the third floor in record time. All you have to do on this floor is head to the center. There's a Death Eye guarding this room, which is just a stronger version of the eye you fought in the Cavern of Ice. There's no real strategy here, it just hit it until it's dead. Thanks to the ribbon, we really don't have anything to fear from this enemy. After the Death Eye is defeated, you'll finally be able to put the loot to use. You don't remember the loot? You know, the one we got from the beginning. The one the princess gave us. Oh, for crying out loud, this one! Shred a totally gnarly rift on the loot and reveal a hidden path to the rest of the Chaos Shrine. Honestly, just use a map from this point on and continue till you reach B1. You don't have a map? Look one up. This is a 35-year-old RPG. Maps exist. Starting from B1 and continuing till the end of the shrine, you will now have to do a rematch with each of the fiends you've already fought. Lich on B1, Merilith on B2, Karen on B3, and Tmat on B4. Each of these... Wait, did I say Karen? Oh, for Kraken? I meant Kraken. Fuck. Fuck. On each of these floors, you'll be battling monsters that you've already fought in each of the fiends' respective dungeons. Each fiend is stronger, but you should be approaching max level very soon and are so well geared that these fiends are even more of a pushover than ever before. Lich is about as easy as ever. With the ribbon, the once deadly status effect moves that he could cast are no longer a threat. I handle him without much issue. Merilith is largely the same story. I mostly focus on just casting Saber here and grind super hard for that extra quick kill. I do almost pay for it, but I manage to knock her out before she can get in that final hit. Facing off against Kraken, I commit to more cast of Saber like always, and almost get smacked. Luckily for me, Kraken is a total tool, and now mostly just uses ink. While he hits hard, I still managed to clear him on the first try. Probably could have used Protect to lessen the danger, but I'm going for speed here. We only have one last stop to make within the shrine before we face off against Chaos on B4. Head to the room in the southeast of the corner on B4, and you'll eventually find the only treasure in Chaos Shrine. Luckily for us, this treasure holds the Masamune, the most powerful weapon in the entire game next to Excalibur and Monk's hands! With this equipped, we now gain a massive power spike and almost ready to fully take down Chaos. The rematch with Tmat starts with 3 casts of Protectra after I change over to Saber for about 6 casts, 1 haste, and lay into Tmat with no trouble. Didn't even have to heal. With all the rematches down, I heal up and grind out the last remaining 2 levels for 99, during which, like God himself intended, I get hit with a stun lock killing me. God, I hate this game. With level 99 achieved and max guild acquired, fully rested and every stack of dead weights still being dead, I save for the last time and prepare to face Chaos. Now, I'm going to level with you guys here. Chaos is unlike any fight we've had to face this entire playthrough. Normally, Chaos is already a pretty challenging fight with 4 party members requiring a ton of buffs and damage to take him down. With only 1 active party member, the time it takes to even do half the power of other party members is sometimes not long enough to face off against this monstrous fight. There's a ton of luck involved here, and even still, the fight can be over in a matter of seconds. Be extremely cautious and get ready for one hell of a long fight. First, for the game plan. Chaos hits like a goddamn truck, so focus on applying Protectra 9 times. Make sure to heal yourself whenever you drop below 400 health. Physical hits do about 300 to 400 damage on average, so you want to be very careful not to get too reckless. I would also suggest not bothering using Invis here. The idea of increasing your evasion to dodge some of these nuclear hits sounds like a good practice in theory. Chaos's accuracy stat is so monstrously high that the chance you get to a point you could start dodging these hits consistently is extremely low from my own experience. I'd rather focus on increasing my defenses as soon as possible. Luckily, thanks to the ribbon, most of Chaos's spells will either miss or be his weakest hits. The only spells you actively have to worry about are Curaga and Haste. Curaga will heal Chaos for 9999 and can become a massive setback on you trying to actually deal with the bad boy. Luckily for me, he only casted this twice out of all my attempts, and it didn't even matter because I didn't hit him yet, so that was pretty nice. Haste is the other dangerous one. If this spell is casted early on, it can mean doom for this run, as suddenly his hits that would normally only do about 350 or so can deal 600 plus. Just hope he doesn't cast it, and if he does, good luck. Once you've exhausted Protectra, move on to casting Saber with the Giant's Club. At this point, the physical hits of Chaos should be doing about half of what they were, and that makes this thing a whole lot safer. You're gonna need a ton of cast of Saber to even start putting a dent into Chaos. Don't cast Haste hastily, like I did, as Chaos can cast Slow Raw and make you waste his turn early. I cast Saber about 5 times, but I do suggest doing it a few more. My hits were averaging about 1600 to 3000, which meant that I was needing about 8 to 10 hits to deal with Chaos. Heal whenever you're getting low, and don't forget to pop the elixir that you've been saving when needed. Full healing is extremely valuable to us, as our strongest heal otherwise is about 350. I am here to kill Chaos. That is my mission. I only know one thing. I want to kill Chaos. I need to. It's not a hope or a dream. It's like a hunger, a thirst. I'll crush you. I'm here to kill Chaos. And with one last hit, I have done it. I have beat Final Fantasy I with a single red mage. Time loop has been severed, ladies and gentlemen, and at long last our endless struggle that has raged for over 2,000 years is over. Peace has prevailed and we no longer have to play Final Fantasy I. If you're interested in taking part of this challenge, I would highly recommend it. All the jobs provide some unique challenge, and despite March Cave pulling over my spirit for the remainder of all time, I had a lot of fun. This is definitely a very fun way to play Final Fantasy I, and when you want that just little bit of extra challenge. I would suggest doing this on the Pixel Remaster version, as this has the most improvements across releases. The Soul of Chaos version does have extra content though, so if you want a little bit more out of this run, I would suggest checking that out. I'm done here, I'm gonna go to sleep, and thank you for watching.